Good morning, everybody. It is Monday, July 29th, 8:45 a.m. We are here once again on another episode of the Market Open. This is going to be a very, very big week. I talked about it yesterday. I did a little bit of a Sunday preview last night. We've got a lot of earnings. We already had some earnings today. Today is actually the lightest day of earnings in terms of like the significance and magnitude of certain companies. But tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, I don't know how I'm going to sleep because we've got a lot to cover. So we're going to preview the earnings we have this week. We got some new Palantir news to start off Monday morning because it's always nice to get Palantir news on Monday. We have a new partnership that we're going to talk about, but also we got a $28 price target upgrade from a certain bank, a certain firm that is not like Palantir for the majority of 2022 and 2023. So we're going to talk about their price target, what they said. It's funny what they said. When you guys read their note, you're going to laugh because they've literally said what we've been saying for the past couple of months and acknowledging what we've been saying. It's just, I think I've said it in a cooler way, and you'll understand what I'm saying when we read their comments. But Palantir got upgraded to $28. That's why it's up 1.62%. Piper Sandler said, hey, buy Tesla, $300 price target. They've solved FSD, so that's why Tesla's up 2% right now, and the street's getting a bit excited that if 12.5 is the real deal, then we're going to see some momentum. And then Bitcoin, $69,675. Maybe it feels like we're on the way to 70K. Last night, I couldn't sleep because we were like teetering on 69.7, 69.8, and then finally I fell asleep and I thought I would wake up and we would see 70K. We're not there yet, but it looks like the Trump comments, which were relatively good comments around Bitcoin, are kind of being factored in now, maybe finally starting to get some momentum, along with the fact that we're going to get a rate cut soon, and it does seem likely that liquidity is going to help Bitcoin. So right here, we're at 69,684 for Bitcoin. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Appreciate you all being here. Every single morning. Tesla said, I fell asleep listening to you. Why is that so sweet? That's like, that makes me feel so happy that you fall asleep listening to me. It also makes me feel like I'm too boring, and that's why you're falling asleep. So we need to make sure, maybe I need to ring the cow. Could you imagine you're like ready to fall asleep listening to me, and I just ring the cowbell, and then you just wake up and you're like scared. You're like, what's happening? And they're like, this fucking YouTuber is ringing his stupid cowbell. We need to do that one. I'm sure that's happened already to people that have been falling asleep. All right. I think it's ready. I think it's time to get started, and we got to get into all the news that we have. Karsten, hello. Arun, Deacon, Carlos, Jason, Adam, Quarantine Quartet, Hugh, Sanjay, Ant, Kyos, Dallas, Other Zinc, Ant. Thank you all for being here this morning. Emmanuel says Amit's voice is so majestic. I wish I also had a majestic singing voice when I tried to become a musician in 7th grade. It didn't work out, but I guess speaking was my calling instead of singing. Benny, what's up? I'm Beneficial. Victor, Guitar Littlefield, Peter, Gene, Daniel. All right, let's get into it. Rebecca, Brad, Victor, thank you all for being here. So let's start off with Palantir at $28 in their price target. Now, here's the comments from Jeffries that I thought was hilarious, and let's just read through it, and then I'm going to explain why I think it's so funny. So Jeffrey says, Palantir is the most expensive name in our coverage, with shares trading at 19 times 2025 revenue. We find it difficult for the stock to work at that multiple. That's fair, like reasonable argument. However, we got the how and we got the ever. Palantir has had back-to-back quarters of solid execution, and we view the company as a rare blended AI applications infrastructure asset with near-term revenue momentum. Priced for perfection, but can continue to trade on AI enthusiasm. Palantir also has that unique ownership structure that could cause the stock to continue trading on AI enthusiasm rather than fundamentals. Is this basically not what I've been saying on the stream, that Palantir gets a cool premium? I feel like I've said this a lot of times as Palantir has, broke over 27, 28 and then held these levels and then broken into that $29 range. Basically, Jeffries is giving the institutional version of my argument, which is Palantir is freaking cool. And their argument is price for perfection, but can continue to trade on AI enthusiasm. To me, AI enthusiasm just means people think Palantir is a fundamentally, paradigmatically different AI name. And they're correct about that if you sort of understand the nature of the ontology and what it means for AIP. So it's a paradigmatically different AI name. But on top of that, that enthusiasm is not just because of A and I, it's because of A and K. And that A and K is Alex and Carp. And so I think, Jeffries can't say, hey, Alex Karp is like someone who just makes people want to buy the stock, because that's not like the institutionally smart intellectual thing to say. But that's essentially what they're saying. They're saying, hey, Palantir is getting a premium, and that premium is like based on the fact that it's just a cool company. So the fact, now here's the implication of this: the fact that they actually raised the price target to $28 based on this is kind of hilarious to me. It's like the fact that they said, oh, I put PLTE at the end. I just noticed PLTE at the bottom. Sorry, I meant to put Palantir. But the fact that they raised the price target on the idea that even though it's overvalued, again, the first part of their sentence, they said it's overvalued. It's hard to trade at this multiple, but we are still raising our price target. Like we're raising our price target even though it's overvalued, because we think there's some like enthusiasm that investors, like, remember, Jeffries is sending this to institutional clients. They're not writing this for you and me. They're writing this for people that pay them lots of money for stock picks. And they're saying, yeah, guys, like, it's expensive, but you should still buy it. I mean, that's what they're saying. Now, again, they have a hold versus a buy on the stock. So technically they're not saying buy it, but if you're raising the price target, you're assuming that there is more momentum built into Palantir. If Palantir falls to $20 tomorrow, they're going to look pretty stupid raising it to 28, right? So it's just hilarious to me that the banks will eventually come around. And this also is a hedge back against the argument that people say, the PE ratio, stocks are always overvalued. You have to be careful of it. Like, yes, the PE ratios and stocks can be overvalued, and that could be a bad entry point to get into, establish a position. However, if it's a certain stock that has a cool premium associated with based on a variety of different factors, then you have to think twice if PE is the sole barometer for how you make the decision. So nonetheless, is Palantir a little expensive right now? Of course. But does the market necessarily care about that? And will it be a stock that's always expensive? Yeah. I mean, when it was at $16, given the growth they had, that was also quote unquote expensive. It's always going to be a little expensive. And as long as they have a good Q2 earnings, I think the analysts are going to bump them up even more, because they're going to see that there is momentum behind AI, even if it stays a little bit overvalued. So we'll see what ends up happening for Palantir. But Jeffries, that was bearish for a long time, decides to upgrade them to $28. Now, here's the new Palantir deal we got today. Palantir and green energy pioneer TES forge long-term partnership to drive global decarbonization. Okay, so this is an interesting one. This reminds me of the Trafigura partnership that Palantir had back in May of 2022. If people remember that, that was another partnership that was based on tracking the carbon emissions within the raw materials of a supply chain. So this one is not exactly the same, but it reminds me of it. So it says, today Palantir announced a multi-year partnership to leverage Palantir's cutting-edge AI software in TES's mission, Tree Energy Solutions, that's the name of the company, to drive the green energy transition and accelerate global decarbonization. Is TES a public company? Let me see. TES is... No, they're not. I don't think they're a public company. Yeah, so they're not a public company. Yeah, they're not. They would say NYCE right here. But they're working with Palantir. Through this partnership, Palantir Foundry and Palantir's AIP will support TES in supply chain management, simulation, and scenario modeling for investment, optimization, site selection, asset management, carbon emissions tracking, and modeling the energy transformation pipeline. Palantir software integrates large language models with AI enterprise networks. Quote from it says, Palantir prides itself in helping the world's most forward-thinking organizations of all types solve their most difficult problems. Says Francis, commercial leadership EMA of Palantir. Working with a green energy player as innovative as TES was the perfect fit, and we are honored to supply them with an enterprise system to be part of their mission. Co-founder of TES says, this collaboration with Palantir underscores TES's commission to innovation, demonstrating how AI can accelerate the energy transition. By leveraging Palantir's AI expertise, we will optimize operations and tracking carbon emissions precisely, reinforcing TES as an innovative leader in the global energy landscape. I think it's a good deal. We don't have any numbers on the deal. So we don't know kind of what the deal looks like going into the multi-year partnership. I would imagine, it's a $10 to $15 million deal. It's not a public company. So if this is a company that's worth a couple $100 million, then they'd probably be paying Palantir 10 to 20 million for this. We don't know how many deals either. Probably 3 years. That's a standard multi-year partnership for Palantir. It could be 3 to 5 years. But what it's going to show, the core thing from this press release is, again, the diversity of implementing AI in the enterprise can go from a hospital to commercial space, which we saw a couple weeks ago with the Starlab and Voyager partnership, to tracking carbon emissions, which if you're dealing with climate change, that's essentially at its core a big data problem, which is what you're trying to solve. in the context of Palantir helping this company called TES. So I'll do more research on this and deep diving in the Palantir Daily episode that's going to come out later today. But in general, we are seeing the ability for Palantir to expand AIP and Foundry into the enterprise. I would be curious as well if this is a company that came through a boot camp. Because if they are, then that's just another success argument for the client conversion from boot camps, which is going to, again, fuel the argument by Jeffries, which is, hey, there is some enthusiasm by Palantir. I mean, even the fact that they're doing boot camps is different from every other AI name, right? Why is it different? Because they're actually giving you a chance to use the product in and of itself. So I do think that Jeffrey saying AI enthusiasm, there's a lot of elements to that enthusiasm. Boot camps is one of them. And that's why you get these companies trading at a little bit more of a premium. Okay, cool. So that's what we got in the context of Palantir. Good stuff today. Let's see how the market holds up. But $28 price target for Palantir from Jeffries, and we'll see how the market factors that in. Let's get into some of these stocks. So Bitcoin right here, trying to approach 70,000. In general, markets are green. IWM, folks, small caps, is at 225. We are seeing momentum in the small caps. Now, we kind of knew this would happen this morning. Futures last night were pretty green. So we knew the market would probably open green. We'll see how the market interacts as we get into 9:30. Intel is up 0.5%, AMD is up 1.3%, PayPal's up 0.65%, Robinhood 1.65%. I think that one should hopefully get back to $22 today as Bitcoin has gone up. So that should be a catalyst for Robinhood. If not, then the street's just waiting for earnings. MicroStrategy at 1822. Remember, the high on MicroStrategy was 1999. So getting closer to that all-time high. Starbucks up a little bit. Google up 1.3%. Google back to 170 after falling 5% last week. Rocket Lab up 1% in the pre-markets. Palantir again 1.32%. Decker's up 0.59%. Verizon is down. Altria is down. Bristol Myers Squibb is down. So some of the value names that we saw rotation to last week, they're going down in names like SoFi going up 1.08%. Celsius as well, up 2.35%. So Celsius seems to be bottoming at 45. Right now it's at 49.15. S&P in the pre-markets are at 546, up 0.45%. The NASDAQ is at 466. Today is going to be an interesting day. Last week, we saw one of the worst days in the market since 2022. And that was down 3.45% on the NASDAQ, down about 2.3% for the S&P 500. We rebounded 2 days later pretty, expeditiously. I mean, we didn't get back to where they were, but we bounced, and we held the bounce pretty well. And small caps really bounced from that, given they probably saw a little bit of rotation. Money market funds lost $9 billion in assets last week, $11 billion. So 6.14 trillion instead of 6.15 trillion, 11.8 billion decreased. We saw some money leave, and we saw the 10-year come down to 4.2. Right now it's at 4.15. Everything that I'm looking at from an analytical perspective in the context of data seems to say that small caps are going to continue to do well. August is going to be slightly choppy. One fun fact is that in an election year, August is not as choppy as it is in a regular year. So although August is supposed to be like a really tough month in a variety of circumstances, 5%, 10% corrections, maybe it's, I still think we'll get some correction, but maybe it's like 2 to 3%, 4%. Maybe it's not as crazy. Maybe Wednesday last week was that pseudo correction. And if the market kind of stays flat in August, that's a win, even if the market doesn't fall back down. But in an election year, August tends to be a little different. So maybe we're not going to see that much downside so far. From a macro perspective, I'm not seeing the type of data that makes me feel things are going to get really bad anytime soon. Now, maybe that changes as we get more data, but so far it does seem like we're going to get decent inflation data, and that inflation data will obviously trigger a rate cut going into September. Here's a fun fact that I thought was really interesting as well, that might signal we've hit the bottom for the S&P, which I know that sounds crazy, right? But look at this stat. On Wednesday, the S&P 500 fell 2%, more than 2%. 164 stocks were higher, though, the day that it fell 2%. Since 2000, an average of 42 days were down 2% or more. So since 2000, we've had 42 days of the S&P falling 2%. The past two times that the S&P 500 was down 2% in one day, down more than 2% in one day, and more than 100 companies were higher, or more than 100 stocks were higher, like it was on Wednesday at 164 stocks, was March 23rd, 2020, which was the low, like the bottom before like we had that crazy run. And then February 27, 2009, which was 2 weeks from the bottom. I mean, this is a hell of a stat, right? So on Wednesday, the S&P fell more than 2%. 164 stocks were higher, which shows you that it wasn't as bearish of a, red day, because if the S&P is down, the index is down, but stocks are still high, there's obviously a little bit of a rotation happening. And so the last time that happened was back right before the sort of COVID rally, and right after the recession, the Great Recession had bottomed from 2008. So it's kind of interesting that maybe 37 was the low that we clocked in, and now like 6,000 or 5,800 could be the high. If that actually happens, that would be hilarious. Maybe we are seeing some more market breadth. One stat to kind of look at, but something, again, this year is not turning out to be the same type of year that you can just use your recession indicators and be like, okay, this happened, therefore this is going to happen. I think this is a much more complex year. I think it's a disservice to everything that's happened over the past couple of years to be able to use that as the sort of analysis here. Seems like it's different, and we're getting different results based on that. Oil is down 77.07. It looks like oil is going to fall below 75 in the next coming days if this trend continues. Again, July inflation, it's going to fall off like a rock. We're going to see a 2-handle on that CPI, and then the Fed's going to price in a legitimate chance for a rate cut in September. And I think stocks will do well on that thesis as well. So from that perspective, we should be heading into the theoretical small cap summer that Tom Lee has been talking about. And so we'll see. We'll see how everything plays out from that perspective. Johnny says, for someone selling covered calls on Palantir this week, earnings are after hours on Friday. Your shares can be called away after hours, just a heads up. I don't think earnings are after hours on Friday. Earnings are on August 5th. So earnings, earnings are on Monday, Johnny, next week, not on Friday. I don't think Friday there's any company that's earnings. Robinhood is on the 7th next week, and Palantir's on Monday. But yes, your shares can get called after hours if your strike is in the money. So I don't know, selling covered calls on Palantir going into earnings. Like, one of my friends is a $30 covered call, and last week he could have closed it out for cheap. When Palantir fell to $25, he would have to pay $300. And I was like, dude, just close it out. Like, he was like, no, it's not going to $30. All right, bro, I hope by the end of this week, it expires on Friday. I mean, I hope for his sake Palantir doesn't get there, which it probably doesn't. But you never know. The Fed says something, market starts melting up. It's one of those things where you just got to be a little cautious of. Monday, August 5th after the bell, correct. Oh, gas is coming down in my area as well, dude. Gas is I saw gas, it was at $3.17. And I was like, I haven't paid less than $3.50 for gas in a while. So oil prices definitely are coming down as well. Amid how many paying customers does Palantir have? 554, if I'm not correct. And it's up 70% in U.S. commercial year over year. So if we can get that bad boy to 600 on this earnings, that's going to be really fun. But we've got to see if that plays out. All right, let's listen to Dan Ives. Oh, Amir's favorite analyst, as he joins the chat. Good morning, Amir. It's time to listen to Dan Ives tell us that the party for tech is only just getting started. He's going to do a preview of big tech reporting this week.
Did it scare you a little bit? I've read your notes. Did it really scare you a little bit last week to see what happened with Alphabet and Tesla and their results?
I mean, Dom, it didn't. Because if I look at the underlying AI growth in cloud, specifically from Alphabet, that's bullish. And where's Tesla going to be spending? It's going to be on incremental AI. Look, I think there's going to be a big week for tech earnings. I mean, when you look at Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, Meta, this AI revolution, I think, is just starting. And that's why I continue to look at it as a get the popcorn out moment in terms of this tech bull market. This sell-off, I view it as a bump in the road, not the end.
All right, you got the popcorn out. So which of those four that I mentioned is going to be the main event for you?
Look, I think the main event is really going to be Apple, because that, to some extent, is really what we're seeing in terms of China growth. Obviously, iPhone 16 coming out September, the AI story, what we're seeing about demand. I think that'll probably have the broadest impact on the overall market. But then you look at cloud, Amazon, Microsoft. I expect strength there, similar as we saw in Alphabet. And I think that's what really the market's focused on here, despite a white knuckle scare last week for the bulls.
All right, because you brought it up, I'm just going to follow up really quickly, because Apple's AI features will reportedly arrive now later than expected. A Bloomberg report says that they will now come in October instead of September. and missed the upcoming software update cycle. So what does this mean for Apple's earnings call on Thursday?
I actually didn't know that. I didn't know that article came out today. I don't think this is that big of a deal because the iPhone should come out in October as well. So if it rolls out with the new iPhone, I don't think that's that serious of a reason to get scared for it.
Given that the Apple Intelligence feature is so front and center.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't move the needle at all for us. I think it's really focused on iPhone 16 September. I think this is really going to be an AI-driven super cycle. And at the end of the day, those customers will be going to be getting those AI features. I don't view that. It all comes down to developers. Developers getting it on time, that's the hearts and lungs of the Apple ecosystem. That's the street's focused on.
You mentioned the cloud and the AI stuff that goes along with both Microsoft and
folks, do we have Bitcoin at 70? Do we have Bitcoin at 70? It's there you go, folks. We're back. I'll go back to Dan Ives in a second. Here you go. Bitcoin 70,000. It was just there. There it is. 70,000. Wow. All right, let's see if it holds as we get into the market open, but we got Bitcoin at least touching 70,000 for the first time since early April, end of March. So nice to see. We're back at 70.
Amazon, if you take a look at those two stocks vis-a-vis what happened with Alphabet earlier this past week, maybe the results are positive, like you point out, but the stock reactions were not. So does this mean there's a shift in investor feeling or sentiment with regard to just what these AI ambitions are and how much they'll cost?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, I think it's more just nervousness around when we're going to see AI monetization. Stocks have had monster runs. Some of the rotation to small cap. Is it over? But I believe this is the second inning of a 9-inning game. I mean, it is still 9 p.m. in this AI party that goes to 4 a.m. So, and I think that's what we're going to see. It's all about you follow the CapEx, follow the spending. That to me, that like last week, Alphabet, Tesla, those sell-offs are buying opportunities, golden buying opportunities in our opinion.
And what about Meta platforms? People have been focused so much on Apple and Microsoft and NVIDIA and Alphabet. I mean, Meta platforms is still pretty high up there with regard to its weight in the markets. What do you need to see from Meta?
It's about the read-through from Alphabet. If you look at on advertising, that rebound I think is going to continue. That's what Zuckerberg's going to talk about. And look, even though that they've gotten, I think some worries about their spending on AI CapEx, that's the right move. I mean, I think they are laying out. This is an AI arms race playing out, and Meta is not going to be on the outside looking in.
And before we let you go, out of all the Mag 7, what do you think is going to be the best one in the next 12 months?
I think a year from now, Apple, $4 trillion market cap. Microsoft will get there as well as the godfather of AI, NVIDIA. But it comes down to Apple. Right now, massive talents in Cupertino.
So I think that's kind of take away from that is that at the end of the day, big tech seems to be what Dan Ives is going to continue to bet on. I think that's the right argument. I do think that the rotation into small caps is a real thesis. And big tech doesn't need to go down 20% for small caps to go up. But Microsoft, Meta, Apple, et cetera, if they fall 2 to 3%, or if they just stay flat at these levels, already, I mean, Microsoft PE 36, Apple PE 34, Meta PE 26, Google 24, now that it came down 10% or 7%, Amazon 51, NVIDIA 66, Tesla at 61. Like all of them are still at elevated price to earnings that have already appreciated their stocks year to date upwards of 30% on most of them except Tesla. So the idea that they need to go up another 10%, I don't think that has to happen because they've already seen a lot of momentum, but I don't think they need to go down 10 or 20%, which means I think, Meta after earnings, maybe it's at 453 or maybe it's at 478. Nothing that crazy different from 465. They would need something explosive to get them back to the 540s. And I think they will get back to the 540s by the end of the year, but that would be in more of a melt up scenario versus on earnings. They said, we're going to give you a dividend like they did last time. And then the thing jumps up. So that's just not going to happen right now. The stock's not that low. It's not at 350 before earnings and they announce something and then it just goes to 500. Like we had that already. It's not sustainable for that to happen again. I don't expect for that to happen again. But I also don't expect for the market to sell all of them off just because they're spending more on capex, because that would be just the dumbest reason to sell off these stocks. And like, I think those dips would get bought. So I said yesterday on the Sunday preview, the market is irrational because they wanted Google to like benefit from all this AI. Google starts spending money on AI capex, and the market says, all right, we're going to sell the stock. You could sell it for a lot of reasons. You could justify selling Google for a ton of reasons at 190. I don't think you can say, well, they're spending too much on capex, therefore we're selling them. That's just like it's a scapegoat argument. And I think the market might try to use that on Microsoft, Meta, and Amazon. If they do, I think those dips get bought because those are not fundamental reasons. That's nothing wrong with the advertising business, with the cloud business, with potentially Amazon's operating margins that are going to be better than 10%. Like if they hit on those metrics and they get sold off because of capex, I just think that's silly. And if that money rotates into small caps for, the time being, then that's fine, because I think people will step in to buy the dip on big tech. So we'll see. Yeah, I did a Sunday episode last night. I'm thinking of doing a Sunday sort of market preview at 8 p.m. every Sunday. Yesterday I did it because there was so much to talk about, but maybe every Sunday we do that just to get ready for the week. What about a split? I don't think Meta splits right now. I think Meta splits when they get closer to 1,000, which maybe is by the end of next year. I don't know. I would like if they split. I would like Meta at $100. It feel like it would be easier to stomach it. But yeah, I don't think they split in this $600 range. And the other big tech companies already did their split a while ago, so they're probably not going to split either. Tesla says I can fall asleep to you every Sunday. Okay, that's nice. I'm happy I'm here to get you to fall asleep. Okay, Tesla. So price target of 300 by Piper Sandler. This was an exciting one. So Tesla may have solved the self-driving puzzle. Don't roll your eyes by Tesla. Piper Sandler says, we think investors have grown accustomed to ignoring Tesla's hyperbole around FSD, but Tesla's version 12.5 update is revolutionary. We talked about this last week. It does feel like the update is starting to be more important than not. We think investors should consider the possibility that Tesla's decision to host a robotaxi event isn't a ploy to distract from falling EV sales. The firm expects Tesla's FSD take rates to inflect sharply upwards by 2030. Ultimately, just like cheap flip phones, we don't think anyone will buy non-FSD cars. I mean, it's like if you understand anything about Tesla, just like if you understand anything about Palantir and you're wondering why is Palantir trading at such elevated levels, well, if you've deep dug into the ontology and like really studied it, you understand why the clients are getting value and then why the market potentially is giving the premium based on the valuation, based on the value that the clients are getting from the software. Same thing with FSD. If you've done a little bit of research on FSD, you would know that no one that uses FSD and that really uses FSD like on a daily basis, like even Chad, friend of the channel, he uses FSD to go everywhere. He just could never imagine going to a car that doesn't have FSD. If the entire world or a certain part of the world eventually feels that same feeling, this thing is off to the races because they're going to get software margins being paid from people that don't need to worry about buying a car. And then Tesla doesn't have to worry in turn of gross automotive margins if they're selling rides. So the question is going to be when that picks up. And I guess you really can't time it, which is why you just got to be in it if you believe in the long-term vision. But Tesla did get upgraded to $300, and we'll see if they can get back to 250, which is where it was at before the earnings call. Martin says 12.5 looks pretty amazing. 12.5 videos are fire. Yep, I agree. CrowdStrike or Tesla? I would pick Tesla any day of the week over CrowdStrike. I mean, just the potential of Tesla's TAM is gigantic. We still have to figure out CrowdStrike, their Q2 guidance as well. So I think I expect my game plan is CrowdStrike's going to drop by like 20% after earnings. Because I think when they revise their numbers, the street's just going to like take away their valuation. But I think that also is a dip that gets bought because they're still going to keep growing upwards of 25%, which is enough to like justify a premium as the TAM is growing. But I do expect a haircut, maybe not 20%, maybe 10%. I just think when they come out and they say we are revising our guidance to the downside, the algorithms immediately are going to start selling it off because it's a top premier name that just can't afford to reduce their growth. So Tesla any day of the week over CrowdStrike. Robinhood right here at 2147. Nvidia up a little bit in the pre-market, 113.75. IWM 224. S&P 546. Bitcoin still hovering at that 70K range. It's $50 away, trying to get to 70,000. So let's see if Bitcoin can get there. Rocket Lab here at 544. Palantir 2744 in the pre-markets, and PayPal 58.56. Okay, let's look at earnings this week. Valerio just had a chicken nugget with mayo. I don't know what's wrong with you. A chicken nugget with mayo has got to be one of the most asinine things I've heard in my life, dude. Like a chicken nugget only goes well with ketchup or barbecue sauce. Not. I don't think you guys understand how unbelievably horrible mayonnaise is. Like, I don't know. I've done the education on this channel. I just hope you guys can take away the education correctly. But I don't think people believe me. It's not a good thing, dude. It needs to be banned. It needs to be banned. That's it. It needs to be banned. All right, McDonald's. They had earnings today. Speaking of chicken nuggets, McDonald's right here, 253. They're up a little bit. McDonald's numbers, they missed on revenue by 2%. They missed on EPS by 4%. But the stock is up because the stock was down 15% year to date. So I guess McDonald's getting a little bit of a sympathy bounce here. The street's not really tanking it yet. On sneakers, or sorry, no. On semiconductor, they beat revenue by 0.29%, 1.74 billion. They beat EPS by 4.35%. Their stock is up 10%. Holy crap. All right, so the semis already are having a good morning. We've got Qualcomm this week. We've got ARM this week. We've got Intel this week. We've got AMD this week. So on semiconductor, starting off earnings for the semis, not in a bad way. So there you go. On is up 10%. McDonald's up like 1%. But McDonald's in general didn't really have the best earnings. And those are the only earnings we have today. I mean, there's a couple others, but those are the ones that really matter. After the close, nothing too important. Tomorrow, I'll be live early for SoFi because SoFi is the big one, and then PayPal as well. Well, I think we're only going to be able to stream SoFi's call because they're both doing it at the same time. So I guess we'll get the numbers, but we're only going to be able to stream one of them, it seems. Unless the other one is after the other. If so, then we'll stream both. Amit, you might be surprised how many sauces are essentially mayo with a couple other ingredients. No, I know, and I don't eat any of them. Like a spicy mayo or whatever. I don't eat that. Honey mustard, I think has some mayo. I don't eat that. Ranch, I don't eat that. Like I just if I can feel that there's mayo in it, I reject it immediately. It's just like I can't engage in it. But barbecue sauce is fine. Ketchup is also fine. Barbecue sauce is better than ketchup. Some people don't like barbecue sauce. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Barbecue sauce is like amazing. Mayo though is just people who mix mayo with ketchup as well. I'm just like, what are you doing, dude? Like, what do you do? You eat eggs? Look, I know mayo is essentially eggs. I get that, but eating eggs is different from mayo. Okay, it's just fundamentally different. So I'll still eat eggs, but don't tell me Frank's red sauce has mayo in it. Do not tell me that today. I don't want to hear that. I'm not hearing that. There's no way Frank's red hot sauce has mayo. There's just no fucking way. So if it does, do not tell me because it doesn't taste like mayo. I don't sense the mayo. And if you tell me there's mayo in that thing, I'm gonna cry because I need that sauce. There's no way, dude. There's no fucking way. I don't do tartar sauce. I don't do Miracle Whip. I don't do any of that. I don't do any of it. Okay, what else do we got? So we looked at some of the macro. We looked at Palantir and Tesla both getting upgrades today by the street. We looked at earnings. Oh, here's a chart I want to show you guys on GPU growth. I saw this chart last night, and it's pretty damn incredible. Well, there's two charts. This one I've shown all over the weekend. If you haven't been with me over the weekend, then you'll see that you haven't seen this. But IWM has broke its 3-year trendline resistance against the S&P. So this is very important. This is a very important technical indicator. It does seem to indicate that for the past 3 years, IWM could not break above the S&P when you compare them together. On Friday, it did. If that's any indication that the S&P is going to consolidate and IWM is going to hit higher, then this is one of the charts to pay attention to. And we'll see how IWM opens this morning. And then besides that, here's a chart I found on GPUs. Again, the amount of companies hoarding these GPUs, XAI, Tesla, Meta, and Andreessen Horowitz, which is a VC fund that's basically buying GPUs for their startups. GPUs are approximately $40,000 each. And some of the biggest tech companies in the world are just hoarding as many as they can. So the reason I want to show this is because NVIDIA's growth this quarter is not going to slow down given the uptake of CapEx being spent by the hyperscalers on GPUs. In a year from now, it might not be the same, but at least for the next 2 quarters, I think NVIDIA is going to see just tremendous revenue growth, and it's not going to stop anytime soon. But when it does stop, then we might see the multiple start to get contracted. But as of now, I think the street continues to give it the multiple, given GPUs are continuing to be bought. What was the Palantir upgrade amid? It was $28 by Jeffries from $24. It's still a hold, not a buy, but they did increase the price, which is always funny that they increase the price, but they say don't buy it. How do you eat turkey or ham sandwich without mayo, Miracle Whip, or mustard? I just eat it with lettuce. That's it. I used to eat ham with a mayo when I was like in high school, and then I realized the evils of mayo, and so I stopped. I just stopped. I'm not trolling, dude. I just I don't eat a turkey or ham sandwich, any cold cut sandwich with mayo. I just don't do it. I'll just eat it plain with lettuce. Like you guys don't understand. It's like eventually you'll realize the dangers of mayo. Everyone has their own realization. Maybe it's not happening right now for you guys, but it's a phase, it's a phase. It's a phase. Everyone has their mayo phase, and eventually you'll move on from it. All right, Ryan Detrick, let's get his take on the economy and why the bull market thesis is intact.
Potential week of a week of potential lot of catalysts out there. Ryan, what exactly is going to stand out to you about what ticks the market either higher or lower from these current levels?
Yeah, Dom, thank you for having me. Good morning, everybody. So I think what's fascinating about this month specifically so far, Dom, the first half of July is usually really strong. Check that off. The third week of July is usually weak. Check that off. Now here we are at the end of July, which is usually pretty strong. But I want to touch on one thing you mentioned at the top of the show. You said last week was mixed overall, and it was if you just looked at the headlines. But Dom, last week, 437 stocks on the S&P were higher last week, right? Even though it lost about 1%. Why is that? Well, we all know, right? The large cap tech and communications have been pulling things back. I think this overall, I know a lot of guests have said it, including me, this overall rotation is really a positive thing. We are seeing a lot of groups that are doing well. Look at small cap technology. That's doing just fine, right? So I think that's what stands out to us. And there's a lot of news this week. Like we can get into some of that stuff, but just the underlying pinnings, Dom, of this bull market, we've been bullish for a while. I've not seen any major cracks. And we think, one more thing on this, August usually is not that great of a month. Look at election years. And election years are pretty strong. So I'm not so sure this rally that started in May, Dom, is quite over yet. Might have a little bit of juice left to it. Then the normal August volatility ahead of an election is probably likely.
But you brought up the point. It is maybe call it 5 to the magnificent 7, maybe 10 stocks overall in the market that really determine the direction. And many of those names are going to report their results this week. What we saw last week was that, these big tech names maybe don't have enough in the tank to power the market higher. We saw what happened with Alphabet. We saw what happened with Tesla. Yep. Can we expect the same with the other ones this week?
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised. I mean, the bar is set extremely high for those names, and they've had so much spectacular earnings overall and justified. But I don't think that's a bad thing, right? I mean, for the longest time, everyone complained only 7 stocks going up. It was never only 7 stocks. Lots of other stocks were going up. They were just going up more. And now people are like, oh, my big cap.
I agree with that as well. Everyone who said it was only 7 stocks, it's like, no, it's not, dude. If you there were a lot of other companies. This was a stock picker's market. The main 7 were going up a lot, but it's not like every other stock was just flat. Like that was ridiculous.
Tech's not doing quite as well. But again, it doesn't mean you have to be wildly overweight large cap tech. You can look at some other areas. Again, I mean, I love the example of 3M last week, right? I know you talked about on the network, but up 20%. 3M is selling things, right? It's not just about AI all the time. There are some major positive things taking place here. And that's why I think you mentioned this week, what we're looking at. Sure, we're watching the big tech names, but just what's happening overall with other consumer companies and industrials and financials. One thing, Dom, I don't think anyone's talking about this. Regional banks are up 20% this month. I mean, I just don't think that's Mr. Market's way of saying there's this big, monster under the bed when you see that much strength out of a group like regional banks. I think that's a pretty darn good sign.
How much of that, Ryan, and not just some of the blue chip names like 3M, which to a lesser degree is indicative, but of that small cap and even regional bank trade that you were talking about, is due to just this idea that there have been so many bets against them right now that people are rushing in to close out those short positions, and that there's not enough of this momentum to keep things going to the upside, fundamentally speaking.
No, that's a great point. I mean, clearly we got lopsided, right? 4 weeks ago, nobody wanted to own small caps. Now we've seen the run they've had. We've been overweight small caps most of this year, small and mid caps for that matter, because we thought inflation was going to get better. We thought we start to see some rate cuts, and we think that's likely. We think 3 to maybe even 4 rate cuts is possible this year. But you mentioned, can this rally continue? But when you look at small caps relative to large caps on a valuation basis, it is historically cheap, just to keep it simple. And then now with this bounce, could it keep going? Listen, we think it can, Dom. We had a over 11% bounce on the Russell 2 those first 5 days this rally started after that CPI a few weeks ago. What in the world does that mean? I looked, when you have at least a 10% bounce in 5 days, that's a buying thrust, an incredible pressure of buying. Historically, going out a year, you're up like almost 90% of the time, higher 27% on average. We can get into more stats and things, but to keep it like this, I think that beach ball is way under the water. You let go of it, it starts to get a lot of momentum. I think that's what's happening with small and mid cap. So we absolutely think the second half of this year, they're still going to lead the overall market, even though they've had a historic run the last few weeks.
Yeah, look, I mean, the counter argument to everything he's saying is recession, because for them to not get that, like, there's 3 scenarios I think that happens over the next at least month and a half. Either small caps go up and big tech consolidates. Big tech goes up, meaning Nvidia gets closer to 140 again, 130, 129, whatever, and small caps kind of take a little bit of a dump. Or the third scenario is we get into a recession and everything takes a dump. But money's going somewhere. And there's not enough of an indication for a recession to happen yet, just given the labor market is pretty strong. And earnings are beating. Again, like, companies cannot beat on earnings if people aren't spending money, if enterprises aren't spending money. They're only spending money because they believe we're not in a recession. Now, that may change in a year or two. Who knows? Maybe the Fed stops that from ever happening over the next couple of years with the rate cuts. But the point is, the recession part, which takes all the money out of the market, I don't see that on the table. So then it's one or the other. It's small caps go up, big tech consolidates, or big tech goes up, small caps take a dump. I don't think big tech would take a dump if small caps go up. They would just consolidate. And I think the first scenario is not the craziest scenario to see that playing out. We do have JOLTS tomorrow. That's correct. We also have the Fed guys on Wednesday. They're going to be talking. So Jay Powell is going to be probably pausing rates again. And this is going to be one of the most important conferences this year, because the tone of which he sounds confident for a September rate cut, which I think he's going to try to hide it. He's not going to be able to hide it. That's going to let the market know, all right, September, it's time to get ready to price in the cut. They've already priced in the cut, but now they're going to really price in the cut. And the JOLTS report, CPI coming up, and Jay Powell talking, I think that leads us into a thesis where the broader market still has room to run. On top of that, again, Google put up $23 billion in profit. Like, this is not a joke, right? These numbers are not, these are not fairy tale numbers, even though they feel like fairy tale numbers. These are real numbers. All the big tech companies are going to put up amazing numbers this week, even if they don't hit every little metric Wall Street wants. And it's going to go to show that these businesses are not dying by any sense of the imagination. They're fundamental businesses that have been backed up by years and years of R&D. AI is now becoming a tailwind. The tailwind is not evident yet in the ROI, but as long as it seems like it's going to be evident, then I think the broader market is going to be willing to give them the multiple. Yeah, 3M also had a great earning. I mean, like, think of stocks that have been up this year. Chipotle, until it like fell 15%, but I think Chipotle is still up like 10% year to date. At one point, it was up 33%. You had Robinhood that's done really well. You had a bunch of the crypto stocks that have done well. Verizon is up, TFC is up, regional banks are up. Like, there's so many different ways to play the market besides big tech. And it seems like that's going to continue going into the rest of the year. Is Enovix a small cap? Enovix, we got the market open in 50 seconds. Enovix is, yeah, I mean, at 2.49 billion. Technically, a small cap is like, I think, below a billion. But yeah, I would say Enovix is definitely, it's in that realm of a small cap at 2.49 billion. Enovix as well, year to date, it was at $6 at the beginning of the year. Now it's at 14. At one point, it was at 18. So it really has been a stock picker's market. And I think a broad scale recession that destroys the potential of every stock, I don't know if that's going to happen just yet, or at least over the next few months. All right, here we go. I see my Mayo comments got a lot of people worked up in the chat. It is the truth. You can believe whatever you want, but like, I'm sorry. This is the truth. It's not just my truth, not my subjective truth. It is the truth, and I will stick with that. So you can feel what you want, but at the end of the day, I just don't think Mayo is. I don't think it's it, dude. I don't think it's it. Monday, July 29th, 9:30 a.m. Thank you, everybody, for being here. The stock market is now open. Wake your ass up. Here we go. Look at Robinhood, 2182. Nice green candle right there, up 2.78% on the day. Two Tone says, I just had a bagel with mayo. Who puts mayo on their bagel? Don't tell me mayo's in cream cheese, because I like bagels with cream. Do not tell me there's mayo and cream cheese. I'm going to have to stop eating cream cheese forever. So please don't tell me that. Robinhood right here, 2166. Dutch Bros, 3838. Bitcoin, 69,500. So you get a little bit of a sell-off right there on Bitcoin, 70,000 to 69.6, rebounding just a little bit, 69.7, but that sold off just a bit. S&P 545, that opens green, but we do have a red candle right there, up 0.21%. Now it is selling off just a little bit from the pre-markets. QQQ 465, that one, again, red candle, even though it's up for the day. So we'll see if that red candle turns green and if some people come in and they buy at these levels. And then IWM looks like it might go red right here. It was up 0.5%. Now it's up 0.17. Again, all three of the major indices go red as soon as the market opens from they're green, but they get a big red candle. So now we'll see if those red candles get eaten up. Yeah, look at IWM. Went from 0.17 to 0.25. So it does seem like buyers are starting to step in now. And we're getting some more green candles. QQQ 464, S&P 545, Robinhood 2164, Occidental 6072. Where's Palantir? Palantir's at 2753. Palantir did get upgraded today to $28 by Jefferies. So 2757 up 1.28%. If you want to go and understand why they got upgraded, you can rewind to the first 10 minutes. But essentially, they got upgraded because Jeffrey said, hey, even though it's expensive, we think there's some AI momentum behind Palantir. Basically saying Palantir is really fucking cool. Therefore, we're buying Palantir. On semiconductor, up 8%, 7618, and Novix up 1.91%. Shout out to Endless Awareness in the chat. They say, Amit, it's my birthday today. I love it. Happy birthday to Endless Awareness. Everyone can wish them a happy birthday in the chat. July 29th. All right. So you're getting right into August. So birthday right at the end of the July. I love it. I love it. I love it. And last night I went on a walk. It started to get a little colder. It wasn't as warm as it was in the beginning of July. So maybe we are starting to see a little bit of that August weather, a little bit colder than typical June, July start to pop in as well. Bitcoin right here, 69,534, QQQ 464. Again, still a big red candle right here. No one's stepping in to buy that dip yet, although it is green on the day. IWM is very close to being red for the day. So let's see how that plays out. 17 cents away from that. NVIDIA, 113, 114. That's up 0.85%. So that's up 1% on the day. Dutch Bros is now red on the day. PayPal, 58.35. Where is SoFi? I think SoFi is at what, 740? SoFi, 745, up 0.47% on the day. So SoFi is a bit green. CrowdStrike 259. So I'm just reading right here, got the notification. CrowdStrike got upgraded by BMO Capital to 410, outperform. They said, we are still assessing the financial impact of CrowdStrike's recent outage, focusing on its depth and duration. Early customer and channel feedback has raised concerns about the potential impact on full year growth. Despite these concerns, we are not changing our estimates at this point as we continue our due diligence on this unprecedented event. So not super bullish or bearish, but indicating that maybe the customer demand is not going to fall off just because of this event. Additionally, Oppenheimer has raised their price target on Coinbase to $282. They have earnings on Thursday as well. Coinbase right now at 252, up 3.5% on the day. They said, we believe in increasing regulatory clarity and digital assets becoming mainstream could increase the likelihood of coin being included in the S&P 500. We remain incrementally positive on our long-term thesis for Coinbase. What's really interesting as well, now that we mentioned S&P 500, Palantir is still not in the S&P 500, 2760 on Palantir. And so if Palantir is still not in the S&P 500, if it maintains this momentum and we get a good earnings, and if how CrowdStrike got into the S&P in June, if CrowdStrike had that like global outage in May, I don't think they would have gotten to the S&P in June. There's just no way I think the committee would have allowed it. Palantir 2770, maybe the committee reevaluates some of the picks they made and decides that Palantir gets to be in December, which would again just be a massive tailwind for Palantir. Tesla is up 4%, 228, not bad. So the 220 dip or the 215 dip was a dip to buy. And I know a lot of people got a lot of flack for buying that dip because all the Tesla bears came out. They said, haha, we told you Elon sucked on earnings. 215 was a good dip. And if you bought the dip, you are seeing some momentum. Tesla's up right now because Piper Sandler raised their price target to 300. And they issued a note saying that FSD is the real deal. And everyone needs to start thinking of FSD as the new era for Tesla's overall monetization and growth. And so it seems like it's benefiting from that price target as well. Palantir right here, 2768, Coinbase at 253. SoFi just went red, 740. IWM just went red. S&P is still green. QQQ is still green. So the NASDAQ performing the best so far. Robinhood right here at 2180, up 2.7%. Bitcoin 69,600. IWM now slightly green, fighting for green right there at 224. But it was red as the market has opened. Akshat says, Amit, what do you think is the ultimate purpose of AI? Is it to increase productivity and save costs to companies? But if that leads to less jobs, will we have less consumption? I think, yes, the ultimate reason is to increase productivity and save costs. And there's obviously real world use cases like FSD, humanoid robotics, etc. If we look at FSD as an example, FSD at the end of the day is just making people more productive. If you're in the car and you can answer emails and get business done while you don't have to worry about driving, that is where the massive tailwinds of productivity come for the average person, enabled by Tesla, which would at that point be the epicenter of creating all that productivity, which is why I would get a multiple. However, in terms of less consumption, I think that's a broader existential question that we're going to have to figure out, especially if AI automates a lot of our jobs. And I think eventually we'll have to deal with that problem. Governments will have to deal with that problem. But I think we've got a good 5 to 7 years until we really have to think about that more deeply. For now, we just need to build out this AI infrastructure. And for the people in the chat, we need to own equities because we don't know what's going to happen to regular jobs in the next 10 years. But if you own equities, one thing that is guaranteed is if you are an owner in these companies, you will do well if these companies end up doing well, right? And if you think these companies are going to do well, you got to have some ownership. So I think owning the market in and of itself is a hedge against some of the existential problems we'll see as AI starts to take over. Ethereum at 3,300. Bitcoin still trying to get back to 70, but it's at 69.5. Disney is up a little bit right now. The cruise lines are up slightly, up 0.49% on Caribbean, Royal Caribbean, or on Carnival, Royal Caribbean 1.26%. ARC is up 1.23. DoorDash up a little bit. Berkshire's down, so value stocks taking a bit of a hit. Where's financials today? XLF is down. Regionals are probably down. KRE, yep, that's down. TFC, that is down as well. So the regionals are slightly down because IWM is down. Tech is going up today. Palantir 27.7, Tesla 228. So small caps taking a little bit of a break in the Mag 7 going green. Yeah, all the Mag 7 are green except Apple. And that's because they delayed the product updates of the AI operating system until October today. Bloomberg reported. Microsoft at 426, Meta 467, Google back to 170, Amazon 183, Nvidia, wow, 115. Nvidia's up 2.2%. So that's why Russell's down, because people are buying Nvidia. So large caps starting to get up. And then Tesla up 4.29% on the day. Endless Awareness says, thanks for the birthday wishes, everyone. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. Hope you enjoyed Endless Awareness. Hopefully you have a good day. One thing, I grew up and my mom taught me is to always celebrate your birthday. Always make it seem like your birthday's special. And so whether it was, bringing me cupcakes in like 3rd grade to celebrate my birthday party or whatever, it was, she always made sure to make me feel happy on my birthday. I think everyone should, because technically you're getting a year closer to death. So theoretically, a birthday is just like an upcoming death wish, quite frankly. But to laugh at that absurdity and actually celebrate the fact that you're getting closer to death, I think is like revolutionary in and of itself. So now my mom didn't mention this whole death thing when I was younger. It's just that at some point Apple just went green. I was like, Mom, aren't we getting closer to death every year we get older? And she's like, yeah, but here's a new toy, So like I figured it out pretty quickly, but we still should all feel very special on our birthdays. Just made that very morbid, but no, still in all reality, birthdays are meant to be celebrated. I feel for anybody, it's an important day as you get to live another year on this planet. Amazon 183, Google 170. Where's Palantir? Do we crack 28 again? Palantir 2769 on the day, up about 2%. CrowdStrike 260, that's up a little bit. Tesla 228. And then the S&P is green. Yeah, so small caps are now taking a hit. We'll see if we have an intraday reversal again later throughout the day like we had last week, where small caps went down, then they went up, and then everything else went down. But so far, money's going back to big tech. Nvidia right back at 116, fell to 106 last week. Now it is back as well. All right, not bad. Not bad at all. Seeing some momentum. Guy says 24th of October, I believe that's my birthday, and I vaguely remember that we have the same birthday. Could be wrong. Yeah, mine's is October 27th, but guys, you have the same birthday as Drake. Drake was born on October 24th. So October is always a big month, I think, for birthdays. around the world. Okay, cool. Let's talk a little bit about the Bitcoin Trump conference because I didn't get to talk about that. I ultimately thought I gave some of my thoughts on Twitter as well. I thought the speech wasn't the best. I thought he was a little bit all over the place. I had a lot of Trump supporters reach out to me saying that they think he's just rambling too much. However, besides the speech part of it, I do think that he said the things that they needed to say. The core things that he said was he would fire Gary Gensler. The crowd was really happy about that when he said he would do that. So that was a big thing in the context of Bitcoin. On top of that, he said that he would not sell any of the Bitcoin that the United States has currently seized, which is about 210,000 that they see. So Germany seized like 50,000 Bitcoin and they sold all of it at 50,000. America has seized 210,000. We haven't sold any of it. So he said he wouldn't sell that. He said no central bank or digital currency will be a threat for Bitcoin. He said we would have protections for self-custody. He said he would develop a council on Bitcoin and crypto regulation, which I think would be very important for the venture capitalists that are investing in Bitcoin companies, for the companies like Robinhood, Coinbase, et cetera, that need to consult with a council. And then he would free Ross Ulbricht, who is the creator of the Silk Road, who currently is in jail right now. So he did say he would do a lot of things, even if the way he said it was very weird. He started talking about EVs and then AI and then the January 6th. So he put in a lot of stuff into the speech that the Bitcoin people didn't really care about, but he did say the stuff that mattered at the end of the day. So hopefully that is a good catalyst for Bitcoin. Bitcoin right here at 69,495. I think the rate cut is the next catalyst. We didn't get that like super big candle when Trump was speaking, but we are up from 53,000 on July 4th. So if you bought the dip at that time, you have done well. SoFi just went green, 746. CrowdStrike, 262. That's green. Robinhood, 2175. NVIDIA, 115. IWM, are we still green? We are green on small caps. Small caps just went green. So the dip was bought at 223.82 on small caps. They just went green. AMD is up 3%. That makes sense. NVIDIA's up, and Qs and the S&P are up. So on Friday, S&P, QQQ, and IWM were all up 1%. I wouldn't mind seeing that again. It would be nice to kind of have everything melt forward and go up, but let's see if that ends up happening. Let's go to the crypto stocks as well. So MicroStrategy is up 3%. Robinhood up 2.4%. Riot's up 4%. CleanSpark's up 3%. Coinbase up 3%. Cypher's up 4%. All the crypto stocks benefiting from Bitcoin close to 70,000. Jem says, wow, Amit, your eyebrows are sharp. Are they? Are they sharp? My barber, he makes them look nice, I guess, every time because my eyebrow, if he didn't do anything, I would have a unibrow. It wouldn't be like a real unibrow, but there's like hair in the middle that would make it kind of look like a unibrow. I didn't know you could get like your eyebrows kind of like fixed up. So in high school, I don't want to say I had a unibrow, but like I definitely had hair in the middle of my eyebrows in high school. And when I got to college, I finally asked my barber to do something about it. And he was like, sure. I was like, oh, I should have done that in high school. I should, so your boy still got girls in high school with a unibrow though. Unibrow wasn't stopping me. A unibrow was not stopping me. But yeah, now my eyebrows become very sharp. DJT is crashing. Is DJT crashing? DJT. Yeah, that's down 4%. I've been looking at a variety of polls. Okay. I know people don't love believing in polls. So 2 things on polls. First of all, Kamala's doing better in the polls than Biden. She's doing a lot better. You can believe it or you cannot believe it. I don't really care. I looked at the data. She is objectively doing better than Biden. However, some of the poll methodologies are looking like a joke. So I actually read the white paper over the weekend of a poll in I think it was Michigan. And I looked at the methodology. I've never done this before. I legit looked at how they came to their conclusion. They interviewed 700 people. The sample size was so small. And then you see these polls on TV, like Trump's up by 45 to 43%, or Kamala's up 50 to 46%. And I'm like, dude, you only asked 700 people. So I feel like although Kamala's doing better in the polls, which is objectively true, she's better than Biden right now. IWM still green. The methodology for some of these polls, they make you think they interviewed hundreds of thousands. Dude, it's 700 people that they called up and they tried to get a perspective from. So I don't know if polls are going to be the barometer on what happens in the election, but it does seem like she's definitely doing better than Biden. And so it will be more competitive than just Biden himself against Trump. Okay, we got to bring on someone to the show today because we've got a lot of stuff going on this week, and I want to talk it over with a friend of the channel. You guys know him. You guys all love him. Jose, what's up?
Hello. Good morning.
We've got a lot of earnings, bro. This is a big week for you, especially in the semiconductor world. So we've got a lot to talk about, a lot to break down. Thank you for being here with me. I think we'll start off with your second largest position, AMD. Fell 12% over the past month. What are you thinking for AMD going into earnings?
Well, just quick update. I mean, I know we talked about this when AMD was around 200, and I mentioned it was my number 2 position. That kind of changed in a bit. I haven't sold. It wasn't just that. I just became a little bit more bullish in some other companies.
Okay, so let me guess. Let me guess the number 2.
Go ahead.
So NVIDIA's number 1. We know that.
Yes.
It's not Tesla, right? It's Tesla?
It is, yeah.
Okay, okay. Then that makes sense. All right, so why is Tesla your number 2 now?
Well, I mean, just in general, AI, I think, is changing so quickly. And Tesla, with all the data, all the computational power that they have, and just overall personally driving FSD made me more bullish. And we had some great attractive prices below $200 earlier. So with that addition during then, and then obviously the nice gains we've seen in the past, it became my number 2 position.
Okay, no, that makes sense. And Tesla's had a run, right? So the stock itself is appreciated to the point where it's probably a heavier percentage of the portfolio.
Yeah, so that was the main thing. It was just the overall growth that we saw with Tesla in just the past month or so that made it jump.
Okay, so AMD, I mean, this thing was 225 in March. I think even you felt it was getting ahead of itself. Now it's back to 143. Piper Sandler has it as their best choice for second half of the year. Is this a steal at this price, or do we have some more downside pain after earnings, you think?
I mean, I think right now it's definitely at an attractive price. I think I was here either last week or 2 weeks ago, and I mentioned a few companies that I was looking at certain prices. NVIDIA under 115, I like. AMD under 150, I like. Supermicro in the 700s, I like. So Marvell under 70, I like. So all those companies have kind of gotten to those levels, and I'm super excited. I did do a few purchases last week, and semiconductors were a big bulk of my buys.
So in the context of AMD, just to give a refresher for a lot of people, AMD is not really selling GPUs the way NVIDIA is, correct?
So they do make GPUs that they sell. They just don't sell it at the volume out the volume numbers that NVIDIA does. I think, for example, in AMD with their MI300, in the last 2 quarters, they passed over $1 billion in revenue in 2 quarters, where obviously NVIDIA, excuse me, a little congested, NVIDIA is selling multi-billion per quarter. So it's the volume is completely different between AMD and NVIDIA in forms of GPUs, obviously because of some technological advantages that NVIDIA has, but also because of the supply chain that NVIDIA has built up throughout the many years that they become one of the best players here.
So the reason people would buy AMD over NVIDIA, like the stock, is not because AMD is selling the same amount of it as NVIDIA, but because the valuation is significantly discounted, $3 trillion versus $200 billion. And they're still selling something that's important to the AI revolution. It's just not at the level of NVIDIA, but it's still important. So it's still something you would want to hold.
Yeah, so many are expecting for AMD to kind of increase their supply chain, to increase their sales. And I guess many AMD investors are hoping for AMD to be the next NVIDIA in forms of numbers in AI GPUs. I believe AMD can definitely benefit from AI accelerators, but I don't think we're going to see a next NVIDIA anytime soon. Again, that doesn't mean it's anything bearish towards AMD. I believe the stock can definitely benefit financially from the AI GPU market, the AI accelerator market, but it's just not going to be to that level that we saw NVIDIA, where I don't see AMD being a $1 trillion company, but I do seeing it even at 300 billion market cap. I could definitely see it at least 2xing from here.
Okay, now do you think Lisa Su's gonna give some surprise guidance numbers? Because the last 2 quarters haven't been good. So what do you think the numbers kind of look like?
So I think last quarter she upped it about 500 million extra to about 4 billion. I think Lisa is very conservative. She's gonna continue with those conservative numbers. I would hope I'm expecting at least another 500 million bump in there. Analysts right now are expecting somewhere around 6 to 7 billion on the bullish side for MI300 for this year. So we can see how much of a difference it is between what the company is guiding and what some of the the bullish analysts are expecting to see for AMD. So I think even if we see some jump there, I don't know if it will necessarily see a bullish price on the stock.
Got it. Intel. Outside of Trump saying nice things about Intel, what do you think happens on their earnings?
Their earnings, I mean, right now, the good thing that they have is the AI PC market is the trend. We're seeing this refresh in the PC cycle. Obviously, Intel has most CPUs out there in your laptop, in your desktop, are still Intel based. So if we're still seeing this growth in the PC market, which we are, Intel can definitely benefit from there. I don't think we should really expect much from their manufacturing push. This is something that would take multiple years for us to really see in their financial numbers. So Intel is one of those stories, if you really want to get ahead of the curve and kind of buy now when there's still a lot of risk in the table, I think what many investors are going to do, they're going to wait for confirmation that things are looking really, really good before purchasing Intel. But obviously that can kind of already be attributed with some price up in the future.
Yeah, and it does feel like Intel has been stuck in this range for a while. So I don't think it has to break out, but I also think it doesn't have to fall 20% because investors know what their guidance looks like. And I don't think this quarter is going to be some massive quarter that changes that to the upside or the downside.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we're going to see much downside from here. I think a lot of the negativity has already been priced into Intel. I mean, though, unless they say, hey, look, our manufacturing push is going a lot slower than intended, then that would obviously cost the stock price. But if something like that doesn't happen, I think we're going to stay within this range.
Okay, is ARM the most overvalued stock in the entire market?
I think in the semiconductor stocks that I follow, yes, I really do think so. Obviously, they are an important company, but they, to their valuation at these levels, maybe obviously in the future they will kind of get to these valuations. I personally, and you know me, right? I focus in high growth stocks, and for me to say this about ARM, it's just a stock that I personally wouldn't own at these levels. Obviously, there's growth opportunities, but not for me.
Yeah, ARM is interesting. SoftBank obviously doing what they need to do to kind of squeeze it by holding the float. But you would argue, besides the valuation, ARM is still one of the most important companies in AI, even if the stock is a little pricey.
Yeah, definitely in AI and just in the semiconductor market. I mean, you're having so many people build based on the ARM architecture. So it's definitely an important company. I don't think their model value, their business model valuation, their business model is equivalent to the valuation the company has right now.
Okay, Qualcomm. Can you give us a refresher on what this company does and what do you think about them going into earnings?
So Qualcomm, semiconductor company that builds a lot of kind of connectivity solutions to help connect your phone, your watch, a lot of these products to the internet. They have big contracts with companies like Apple, right? Apple, who builds a lot of their own chips. One chip that they can't get rid of or can't make better is Qualcomm's modem chips that go on their phones. So we can see how strong they are in that solution. Qualcomm also creates processors for the phone business. Most Androids are based on Snapdragon, which is a Qualcomm product. Qualcomm has now recently entered the PC market, and they're one of I think they have exclusivity with Microsoft for this year on AI PCs. So Snapdragon X Elite, I believe, is called the processor for the CPU for the AI laptops, and that's where Qualcomm is entering right now. So the Snapdragons is their biggest product, but one of their core products is definitely the connectivity between IoT, so internet to a device.
So semis historically in Q3 or Q2 tend to be a bit more cyclical to the downside. Do you think those dips across all the semis like we saw last week make sense to buy given the long-term thesis is intact, or some of these businesses actually are a little bit fundamentally overvalued like AMD was?
So I think in the semiconductors, you have two cycles. You have your short-term cycles, which, like you mentioned, are in the quarterly basis. So you have certain quarters that are going to be weaker than others. Then you have your long-term cycles, which last usually about 3 or 5 years in the overall semiconductor space. And this is when you're seeing an increase in PC sales, an increase in phone sales. So I think right now what we're just starting that bullish cycle of that long-term cycle of that bullishness, because we just hit lows on PC inventory, we just hit lows on PC sales. So I don't think most investors right now are worried too much about that short-term cyclicality, which will be that quarterly base. I think investors right now are very excited about that long-term bullish trend in the semiconductor space, and I think that's where we're in early innings, and a lot of these stocks with this dip got pretty attractive in my opinion.
Now, you said we're hitting lows in PC inventory and PC sales. Why is that relevant for the broader semi landscape?
So for obvious, right now, semiconductors are mainly sold in the consumer space, right? So that's where most of the semiconductor money is made out, in consumer products like your laptops, like your PCs, like your phones, your tablets, your smart watches. And usually you have huge inventory corrections when there's too much supply, or there's too much supply and not enough demand. We've kind of hit those bottoms, and now it's like people are saying, okay, it's been 3 to 4 years since we last bought a PC, which was probably during COVID. Most people were buying PCs during COVID as a lot of working from home happened. In the past 3 to 4 years, technology improves, and we have some new reason to buy a new PC. So right now, a lot of those computers are getting old. We're also having that tailwind from AI in the PC market, which gets consumers saying, oh, hey, look, maybe I purchased my computer 4 years ago. Now it's time for me to go buy a new one. So now those laptop makers are going to go to Intel, to AMD, and say, hey, look, we need a lot more processors. They're going to go to memory companies and say, look, we need more memory, because they go in all these consumer products. They're going to go to NVIDIA. Even though the consumer market is not as strong anymore, they're going to say, hey, look, we need more GPUs for all these kind of technological products that we're selling right now.
Got it. No, that makes a lot of sense. And if all those need to be upgraded, then all the sort of A, B, and C players in that space are obviously going to have to get some momentum from it as well. We got someone here saying I bought a laptop last week. And then that's true, dude. Laptops, like, they suck after 3 or 4 years max. I mean, I hope this MacBook Pro that I just bought lasts me another 5 years, but I mean, I wouldn't count on it, because they definitely deteriorate. Jose's YouTube is in the chat, folks. Please make sure to subscribe to Jose. Very good channel on semiconductors, NVIDIA, AMD, etc. Jose, last question for you. So Google, they go on their earnings and they say, hey, we're spending $13 billion in CapEx, which helps AMD, NVIDIA, Micron, blah, 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 ASML, all those names. But all those semis go red after Google says it. Is this just a little bit of, like, I don't know, taunting with the market? Or why are semis not going up off Google saying they're spending $13 billion every 90 days on AI infrastructure?
So I want to say those numbers were in line with what Google gave us last quarter. So last quarter, they spent $12 billion, and they were like, hey, look, for the upcoming quarters this year, we're going to spend at least $12 billion. So I think some semiconductor investors, or just investors in general, were expecting these companies to continue to raise their CapEx on a quarterly basis. I think that's unreasonable to think. They already did increase it a nice amount from last year, right? And Amazon, Microsoft, their last 2 quarters, I actually just did a video on this. So that's why I remember the numbers. This last quarter, before these earnings, they mentioned that those were the lows of the year. So we're expected to see improvements throughout CapEx. I think right now there's 2 different shifts, and there's 2 sentiments that the market is following. Well, 2 sentiments. The first sentiment is market and analysts asking, hey, this money is being spent on AI, but where is the revenue? And I think that's what's driving the short-term stock price. But if you hear Google's answer, or of their CEO, I think that's the mindset a lot of CEOs have right now, that, hey, look, we're not going to show you the revenue numbers right now. Obviously, we're seeing some improvements overall, but this is a long-term position. And we need to continue to invest right now if we want to be leaders in this space. Microsoft mentioned it last quarter that they need to invest heavily to maintain the leader in large language models. Google pretty much said the same thing this quarter. So I think that's the mentality that top CEOs have right now. And unfortunately, analysts are trying to get that short-term gain right now. And I don't think we're going to get that short-term gain. And unfortunately, I want to say, if we see any big tech slowdown in CapEx, that I would be more bearish in that big tech in general. So if there's a big tech that sells off, I think right now you need AI chips to keep your clouding market share. And if you slow down in AI chips, you're going to bleed market share in your clouding solutions, maybe not this quarter, but next quarter and the quarter after that, as all these companies continue to optimize. So I want to say, if we see any big tech slowdown, that's going to be a big red flag for that big giant, in my opinion.
So you think big tech not selling or not spending as much on chips is not as bearish for NVIDIA? It's more so bearish for that particular company because their competitors are going to spend more.
I think it's obviously going to be bearish. I'm not going to say obviously it's bullish for NVIDIA. I think it could impact NVIDIA's product, but I think in the long term, it would be more hurtful for that big tech giant, because it's a lot easier to bleed market share than it is to gain market share. And
Right.
kind of becoming a slower in tech innovation, you're going to bleed a lot faster, and it's going to take you a long time before you grow that number again.
Got it. All right. That's Jose, folks. I'm putting his Twitter in the chat as well and his YouTube. Please make sure to follow him. Jose, thank you for coming on every week and helping us learn this. He'll be on next week after we get through the earnings on next Monday, or even throughout the week. Maybe we'll have you on right after AMD and Intel speak, and we'll get your thoughts on it. Thank you,
Sounds
Jose.
perfect. Thank you.
Have a good one. Bye-bye. All right. So that's what we got in the context of the semiconductor names. This is going to be a really interesting week for semis. And I think my eyes are primarily on AMD to see if the market's ready to give them that premium that they were getting in April and March. Small caps, 225. They're green, folks. So IWM up 0.33% on the day. SPY is up 0.47%. And the NASDAQ is up 1%. All three are going up. Palantir 2774. Again, they got an upgrade today. They're up 2%. SoFi's up. Enovix is up. The only thing that's down, quite frankly, are financials. And that's not really a bad thing. Financials are up 15% over the past 3 weeks. They kind of needed a breather, quite frankly. So, and I mean, when I mean down, they're, down 0.84%. Like most of them are doing fine. XLF down 0.27%. So big tech is getting the money. NVIDIA's up 2%. Along with some of these crypto stocks. Bitcoin is at, where's Bitcoin? Bitcoin is 69.2, so we're down a little bit. And then small caps are getting some of the money today. Okay, not bad. And Tesla's ripping. That is correct. Tesla right here, 231. Wow. Look at Tesla go. Up almost 6%, bro. Dude, there were so many people that were angry at that 215 dip in terms of people buying it. I just saw, I bought a couple shares. I saw other people saying I'm buying the dip at 215, 220. And the Tesla bears, I remember that was on Wednesday. They were so they were like, why are you buying this? It's not supposed to be here. It fell from 270. FSD is not happening. And it's like, nope, here you go. And the market is ready to keep giving Tesla the premium on the potential of FSD. I don't know. I mean, look, does it go below 200? I think, again, the broader market would have to take a hit for Tesla to fall below 2. I don't think Tesla individually goes below 200, given the momentum we've seen over the past 6 months. 210, maybe 215. Sure. We were there last week, but we would have to really see some weakness to drop another 50 billion in Tesla after an earnings where they delivered some decent results on energy. I know the automotive margins were down, but no one cares about that stuff anymore. I think the biggest thing Elon has done, Tesla almost 232. Yep, there you go, 232. He has transitioned analysts from thinking about the company in terms of the metrics that you use to judge a car company. And as a result of that, I think Tesla's getting more excitement by the street. I'm curious about Meet Kevin's perspective, because he said Tesla to 180 and he said IWM is going to collapse. He's short Bitcoin. He bought short QQQ, which today is down 3%. I'm curious if he changes back to being bullish and what it would take to get him to be bullish in the coming days. Or does he stick it out with this kind of recession thesis popping up in the next coming months? Is Meet Kevin actually shorting Tesla? I don't think he's shorting Tesla, but he sold a bunch of Tesla because he thinks it's going to 180. He is shorting the broader market, though. Too many people that missed this first run will FOMO in back at 210 or 220. That's another thing I agree with. If you miss the Tesla run up to 270 and you're getting a chance to buy back in like you did last week at 215, I think people take that dip. I don't think, this is the thing that happens with Palantir. Let's say Palantir falls to 25, just like it did last week. People took advantage of that dip. Now, I know the entire market bounced, but my point is, when a stock stays at a certain level for so long, when it falls from that level, maybe it's not even the best thing to buy the dip, given that level is still elevated. But it psychologically does feel better buying it at 24, 25 versus at 27, even if the real dip is coming at 21, right? And so people will DCA because you can never really time the exact bottom. And that helps with a lot of companies that have had momentum. Look at Google. OpenAI, Search GPT, not a concern. CapEx spending, not a concern. Up 2%, 171. Still down from where it was on earnings, but it is up from where it closed on Friday, after some concerns around Search GPT. Andre says, I have FSD 12.5. It works. Yeah, I mean, pretty much everyone that I've talked to that has FSD 12.5, it not only works, dude, it really works. And like, it is magical is what people are saying. So I don't think that's something to ignore. I just don't think that's something to ignore when it comes to the prospects over the next 6 months, especially with the Robotaxi event coming on. Why is McDonald's going up? Well, so McDonald's, the one thing that they said on their earnings that was good is that the $5 new meal, I don't know if anyone's tried that. I haven't tried it yet. At McDonald's, it's doing very well and it's selling more than they thought. So McDonald's like $5 meal initiative is going well. On top of that, the stock was down 15% year to date. So they missed on EPS and revenues. I didn't read the entire report. I'm imagining something they said had the street feeling like, okay, so the stock's been sold off enough this year. You know, there's probably some silver linings here. So that's why we'll buy it. But McDonald's at its core is not even more of a hamburger company. It's a real estate company. I mean, they have so many locations. They have the most locations by far of any fast food restaurant on the planet. So there's a lot of things they can do with all that real estate. But the international sales was really one of the hardest parts of their business over the past couple of months. Given the stock already took a nasty beating, makes sense that it's getting a little bit of a rebound today, up 3%. Tesla right here up 5.5% at 231. Palantir falling a little bit at 2760. We got a red candle right there from 2775, but still green for the day. Qualcomm is up a little bit. ARM is down 1%. Intel's up a little bit. IWM still going green, 225 on IWM. 5 points away from 230, which would be really nice to see. CrowdStrike 263, that's up 3%. Robin at 2148. And then Bitcoin still falling a little bit, but in the 69,000 range. Bitcoin, yep, right here, 69,000. Someone asked, did I ever have a Big Mac before? No, because I tried it and Big Mac has the Big Mac sauce is mayo, so I can't do it. Same thing with Chick-fil-A sauce. There's some mayo there. I can't do that. And then In-N-Out. In-N-Out, basically, they're like special sauce. They're animal fry sauce. That's mayo as well. So I keep up to date with my mayo, dude. I'm like, if it has mayo in it, bro, I'm like, nope. No, sir. Not for me. Not for me. What are the expectations of the Fed meeting today? Is the Fed's meeting today? Oh yeah, the Fed meets today, but then they talk about it on Wednesday, right? I don't know the exact expectations, but I think the argument is that the Fed's going to come to the conclusion that they're not raising rates and they're definitely not cutting rates. So I would imagine that they're all going to be in that meeting, all the Fed presidents, and they're going to come to the conclusion that, hey, things are weakening. We have to cut. We're not going to say we're going to cut because we're not cutting yet, but we're also definitely not hiking. Like if we get a hike, dude, I will eat a bucket of mayo live on July 31st. If we get a hike, I will eat a bucket of mayo live on the stream. That's how confident I am we're not getting a hike. So we're not getting a hike, dude, because I'm not eating a bucket of mayo. There's no way in hell. So, dude, if he hikes it, oh my God, it's going to be in a bad situation. But yeah, we're not going to get a hike. We're not going to get a cut. So I think the broader meeting, it's just going to be them jerking around in the table where they sit at thinking, hey, when do we cut rates? And then someone's going to say, we should probably do it September. Someone might say July. Someone might say August. And they're going to conclude, all right, we're probably going to do September. And that'll be the conclusion of the meeting. And then JPEG will answer questions on Wednesday. I sold puts at $29 on Intel. The stock is down 37% year to date. They will have to really screw up to go down further. I agree. Now, their bottom was $23, Akshat, back in 2023. So I think there is a potential they can test that if things go bad. But again, they would have to really screw up to test that $23 range. So I think your $29 puts should be safe. But we'll see. Did you talk about the Google search amiding the Trump assassination? Yeah, this was very interesting over the weekend. So, I mean, I'll just do it in front of you guys right now. So like Google, I don't know if you guys have looked this up, but if you start typing in assassination, how do you spell assassination? Okay, assassination, and then you do attempt. You guys can see my screen, right? We don't get Trump pop up. The first result is Truman, which is kind of crazy. I'm not showing you a screenshot. I'm doing it live on Google because, like, why is anyone searching for Truman, Reagan, Hitler, Fidel Castro more than Trump, given what happened? And then if you go on TUR, I still don't get Trump. U, I still don't get Trump. M, I still don't get Trump. P, there's nothing in the search. It's kind of crazy, right? Like, it's pretty crazy. Assassination attempt on Don. Like, there's only one real person that starts with Don and then old, right? That people care about. Don Old. There's no search result. But obviously they have a bunch of news articles on it, but like it doesn't pop up in search. So the reason I'm showing this is because a lot of people over the weekend felt this is another reason why. Let's do it on Bing as well. Let's test it on Bing. There's another reason why XAI needs to exist, because it just feels kind of blatant that it's taking out. Maybe it's a technical reason why it's not showing that. I don't want to assume the worst, but it is kind of insane, dude. Like, everyone's searching about assassination and Trump. It doesn't make sense that it doesn't pop up. So let's try Bing. So we'll do assassination attempt on. Yeah, there you go. On TR starts Trump. TRU starts more Trump. And then if I do DON, yeah, there you go. You get Donald immediately. If I even do D, you get Donald. So Bing is totally different from Google. Totally different from Google. And that's the result you're getting. So I mean, this is, a lot of people call Elon crazy and XAI is wasting money. I mean, at some level, if AI and LLMs are going to be the operating system for how all of us consume and engage with information, which, by the way, they are. Meta's AI is integrated into Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram. There's billions of people that are searching on that every day. If you have an AI that, quite frankly, is just lying, it's not telling the truth, and that AI is used by billions of people daily, because it's more efficient than like a search engine, which is the bull case for AI, Tesla 231, then you do need a hedge against that. And so I am starting to believe more and more that XAI is going to be relevant for the very nature of the fact that you need a different model that doesn't have some of those assumptions. And again, I don't want to assume the worst on Google for doing this, but it's been 3 days. Like on Friday, this kind of story went viral and they haven't updated the rankings. And like, they can push one update and the rankings could change, right? Like, it's not that hard to do. But they haven't done it. And it kind of begs the question, So I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens. But that was one weird thing that happened over the weekend as well. Amid, have you read 1984? Yes, I've read 1984. For those who haven't read 1984, I think it's absolutely a must read for every single human. There are elements of it in our society right now. A lot. The biggest lesson I got from 1984 was groupthink. For those that haven't heard of the concept of groupthink is the idea that you start thinking with the group, right? Because you get programmed to not want to say. I mean, there's a really an example is, I think this is North Korea, which is when the leader comes out, everyone starts laughing, or not laughing. They start crying, and either this is a North Korean example or a Stalinist Russia example. People start crying for 10 minutes out of like tears of joy, because you don't want to be the last one not crying. It's like people keep crying and like clapping their hands, and you don't want to be the last one who's you don't want to be the first one to stop clapping and laughing your hands, because clapping your hands and crying, because then it makes it seem like you don't respect the leader. So in a lot of communist countries and nations, they have this idea where you show so much respect to the leader that you're afraid to not show respect. So you'll literally for 10 minutes keep clapping and crying to just not be the first one to stop doing it, because then you might be singled out as someone who's going against the group. Doublethink. Yes, doublethink. That's the phrasing of it. So it's one of those things that's becoming more prevalent in our society. And I saw this over the weekend as well. I don't know if I saved it, but I saw in America, I think this was in Pennsylvania, if I'm not wrong. There was a revolutionary communist march in Philadelphia, I think. Yeah, here you go. They're saying class war, fight for the poor. Fight the rich and feed the poor. I mean, dude, you guys know my thoughts on communism. You guys know my thoughts on it. I just think all these people are stupid. Like, I'm just like, I know a lot of people are going to hate me for saying that. It's just, that's how I feel. I try not to get super, super political, but I just think the people that believe in communism don't have any real understanding of history. They don't have any understanding of economics. The very flags that they're carrying right here, these were made in China. There was a business that created the flags that they're carrying right now, the shoes they're holding, the megaphone he's speaking on. All of that is a product of capitalism. And so the idea that you want to take away the means of production and nationalize it so that everybody has ownership in something that they did not work to gain ownership in for, whether through contributing capital or contributing labor, is just ridiculous to me. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Promotes free speech and denounces groupthink, proceeds to attack someone else's views. Well, but yeah, Thomas, that's a bad faith comment. I mean, like, I'm allowed to say I think communism is stupid, and someone else is allowed to say communism is good. We can have that debate. I'm not saying they should go to jail for being communist or anything like that. Like, there's nothing crazy. I'm just saying I think they're stupid. Like, that is my belief. And quite frankly, I'm critiquing groupthink, because communism is a groupthink philosophy. It is this idea of how can we nationalize and come together on a set of ideals that should be distributed universally, which, if you know anything about human nature is not universal. A lot of times we have our own distinct ideas and sovereign interests, which is why freedom of speech in America is so important, because we respect that sovereignty. So I would say communism is the ultimate form of groupthink, and we're allowed to critique it. Now, should we ban it and like put people in jail for that? No. I was like Trump said something over the weekend, dude. Trump said if you burn the American flag, you should go to jail. I don't agree with that, dude. At the end of the day, I don't agree with that. Like, I don't like people burning the American flag. I think that's a horrible thing to do. I do not think we should be putting people in jail for that, because at the end of the day, and there are Supreme Court cases on this, I think going back to the 90s, burning an American flag is legal under the First Amendment. It is a form of freedom of speech. So I disagree with Trump that we should be putting those people in jail. I think that's ridiculous. But I also disagree that people should be burning the flag. Like, I don't like seeing that. So I think you even have to hold yourself to higher standards when you say you care about free speech. And part of that is agreeing with the fact that you wouldn't throw people in jail because they're communists or because they're burning the American flag, but you're allowed to critique it. And in the broader, ecosystem, I think it's important to at least critique it. I know some of you might disagree with me. Some of you might say, no, those people should be in jail. That's fine. I do not think people should go to jail just for burning a flag. I hate it. I don't like it. It puts a hole in my stomach seeing people do that, especially because they're so ungrateful for the fact that America has given them all these freedoms. IWM 224 just turned red, but I don't think they should go to jail for that. So that's what we got. Anyway, yeah, my main political belief is against communism, and I don't know. I just the one reason I just don't like it is because I think it's very hypocritical, and it's people like when you've started a business, bro. And I know a lot of people in the chat have started a business or built businesses. Like, you start to realize how difficult it is to actually build something successful in capitalism. 10-year right here going up a little bit at 4.171. It was at 4.152 in the morning. And so when you critique capitalism and you've never tried building anything under a capitalist ecosystem, which is cutthroat competitive, like, it's not easy to build anything in a capitalist society. I mean, it's easier to critique it. And I just side with the founder and the entrepreneur versus the critiquer on this subject. So those are my thoughts on that. Okay, so that's what we got there. Do we have anything else going on? I don't think anything else is too crazy. IWM just turned red, but it's slightly red. TFC's down, AMD's up, Intel's down, S&P is still green, and the NASDAQ is still green. So NASDAQ and S&P are green. Palantir falling a little bit at 2740. Tesla 231, still up 5%. IWM is down. Basically a boring morning. Nothing that crazy, quite frankly. Nothing that crazy in the broader market. Amit, you built a YouTube channel. How hard can capitalism be? But yeah, but like, even building a YouTube channel, dude, it's like, it's not easy, dude. It's tough. Like, building anything is really tough. Building a Twitter profile, building a YouTube channel, and then, like, not just like anyone can start a YouTube page, like actually, making it work and like getting it to grow. Like just building anything in America is difficult. It's easier than anywhere else in the world because America is pro-business, but it's difficult to do it. And so when people like critique the founders for trying, like, yeah, Zucks is not perfect, but dude, he built a company that billions of people are using and that are getting a lot of benefits from. I mean, my grandmother in India is on WhatsApp all day, and she's getting old and she's getting sick, and like WhatsApp and Facebook are like distracting her from some of the issues she's dealing with in life. Like, how much is that worth? To me, that's priceless for your, your grandmother to not be sitting thinking about horrible things all day because she's getting older, but rather being distracted by something like a Facebook, right? And like she's connecting with her nieces and aunts and grandkids, seeing their wedding pictures like that there's value to that. That is beyond calculable through dollars and cents. But it happened because Zuck's made a business that makes a lot of dollars and cents for that effect to even be real. And I think most of the people critiquing capitalism, they benefit from it too much. So it's just a lot of hypocrisy at the end of the day. Chris says, I like SoFi at $5. I know people say it won't drop, but I've set a big buy limit order for $5.50, waiting for the big drop. Yeah, I don't think SoFi gets to $5.50. I think we would have to see a real collapse in IWM for SoFi to get hit. The reason SoFi is down right now is because IWM is down. So it's really moving with small caps. So if small caps they get beating back to 190, I think that's possible. But I don't know. 550 is going to be a little tough. I think it would be trading under book value if it's at 550 or at like exactly at book value. No, book value is $4, so it's still a little bit of a premium at 550. But it would be hard to get there. Okay, so that's what we got on SoFi. Let me bring up Ed Yardani. I want to get his thoughts on what's going on in the context of rate cuts. So he came on today. Let's see what he has to say. Again, he has been predicting rate cuts pretty accurately over the past year and rate rises. So let's get his take and then we'll go from there.
Yardani Research Ed, you've been optimistic. I won't even.
During this second quarter earnings season, we're expecting 10%. We think they're coming in reasonably well. In addition, I think the market's discounted the fact that the Fed will most likely cut the Fed funds rate in September. And that might be one and done. I mean, I know that there's a lot of people talking about more, but the economy is performing awfully well. But the big risks out there remain geopolitical. I mean, the crazy headlines today about.
I think CNBC forgot to turn off the mic of their person who's in Paris right now. So this is just like unlistenable. Yeah, this is just like, it's very hard to listen to this. So yeah, we'll move on from that. They're all in Paris today for the Olympics, but they need to turn off their mics because we can hear too much of it. Let me actually get to this. This is actually one of the things I wanted to show as well. The NBA Amazon deal. I thought this was interesting. TNT is suing Amazon or suing the NBA for going with Amazon, but I think the NBA just wanted to go with a partner that had more money. So let's get an update on this.
It was a real tussle up until the last minute.
Absolutely. Warner Brothers Discovery waited into the last minute. They had an exclusive negotiating period where they had an opportunity to be a partner and they couldn't match a price. So they waited for Amazon or NBC or whoever they'd wanted to match. And evidently they tried Amazon. The NBA said no yesterday and rather quickly too.
And for what reason? I mean, obviously money talks, but they must be thinking that there's a viewership addition here. There's a marketing and branding expertise that they're going to be able to bring. Yeah, the NBA gave me 3 reasons, and I want to make sure I get them right. But number one is that TNT, when they matched the offer, they wanted to stream all the games on its cable network and its streaming service, Max, whereas Amazon is just a full-fledged streaming service. Second, the NBA believes that Amazon's reach is greater. And number 3, Amazon offered to pay the first 3 years of its deal up front, while Warner Brothers Discovery came in and tried to get a line of credit. And so the league, when it reached out to its new partners, they wanted a streamer, and they got one in Amazon. Wanted a cash.
Dude, and the reason I want to show that is because this is how we're seeing big tech take over everything. TNT, which has hosted the NBA games for I think 2 decades at this point, not only do they not have the distribution that Amazon has, which again just points to Amazon's moat. I know the stock has been kind of stuck in a range, but that moat is not going anywhere. Amazon has more distribution, 180, 140 million Prime subscribers. And they paid up front for 3 years. I mean, if you're the NBA, you're going to take the 3 years up front versus hoping that Warner Brothers gets a line of credit and then is able to effectively pay you back the money. It's like, nope, Amazon's like, hey, here's the cash right now. And to Amazon, it's really pennies. For Amazon, they're like, hey, you need a couple billion? Okay, sure. Here you go. So I think the media companies are being disrupted so quickly. Netflix is the only one that really is having any wherewithal to survive. But the other media companies, they can't compete for the content. And if you don't have the content, if you're a media company, you're dead because you don't have no technology. The only thing that matters is the content. So Netflix showing that they're able to do it profitably, but everyone else is getting commoditized by big tech. And Amazon getting that deal, I think, is going to be really important. And think about all the NBA people that, you know, watch NBA games, but maybe they're not subscribed to Amazon Prime for some reason, and they start subscribing. Like, it's a tailwind of growth for Amazon, and it sucks for the legacy media companies like Warner Brothers. In terms of Vern, what's the one you guys said? Serve. This one is up because NVIDIA put an equity stake in this, Serve Robotics. So this is up 11%. It's really up over the past month. Yeah, it was at $1. It's up 14x. I know it looks kind of crazy. It was at $1 on July 3rd. It's up 1,400% in a month. I wouldn't chase it because it's up 1,400% in a month. But NVIDIA took an equity stake in them, and that's why they started to get some more momentum. And it's a small cap at 550 million, so had some room to run as the broader small caps are going up. Its price to sales is 2,626 on Serve Robotics. So I would just be, you know, we said ARM was overvalued at a 48 price to sales. Serve Robotics 2,600. I would be just a little cautious on Serve, even though it's up a lot. But it's up because of NVIDIA. So that's why it's up. Amit, do you think you should own the content you make or YouTube? I think at the end of the day, like, it's YouTube that, I mean, like, ownership of the content is weird to me because at the end of the day, YouTube's creating the platform to distribute the content. The content doesn't matter if it's not on a platform like YouTube. So I think really it is a 50-50 thing. But in terms of actual ownership, I already don't own it. Like, if you sign up on YouTube and you become a creator, they own everything in their terms of service. Now they share revenue with you, right? That's like the reason people like using YouTube more than other platforms, but they technically own the IP. Now, granted, YouTube's not starting like a theme park off Mr. Beast content or, you know, some fancy creators content because they've always treated creators really well. And I don't think they want to like use Mr. Beast to start a theme park and not give Mr. Beast any royalties. I think there's like, you know, just some tension there. And B, they don't need to do that because they make so much money on ads that they have a really good business having a friendly relationship with creators, which is very rare. Most platforms, i.e. Facebook and Instagram, they don't pay creators because they make too much money and they don't want to give up any market share. YouTube has always took a loss because Google subsidized them to pay creators. And now YouTube's really making a lot of money from creators as well. So I think at the end of the day, YouTube is the distribution platform for discovery. And that's why it's the most important thing as well. Don't copyright strikes exist because the creator owns the content? Yeah, but that depends a lot on like music and movies. And like, for example, if I played a Kanye West song, Kanye West's label would be like, hey, that's our content. And therefore, you know, you're not allowed to play it without paying for us. So YouTube then pays all the ad revenue I would make from this video to Kanye West's music label because he owns the rights to that content. But if someone reacts to my video, for example, I think YouTube will give me a notification like, hey, someone's reacting to your video. But most people, the culture is not to like, you know, take that person down. It's more of a friendly, like everyone's working together to try to build content. So it's not like that intense. But if it's music or movies, then it gets a lot more intense. And so that's kind of the business of how YouTube works out. If YouTube got spun off from Google, it'd be bigger than Netflix. I agree. I think YouTube is closer to a $600 billion company by itself. Netflix market cap is what? 270? Yeah, YouTube beats Netflix any day of the week to me. I mean, the business model is just so much better, dude. It's also a search engine. Like, it's just, in terms of advertising and premium, they're just way better than Netflix. They don't have some of the premium content Netflix has, but I don't think that matters when they have so much user-generated content. So the world is moving towards discovery and algorithmic recommendations over just like premium content. Netflix will still do well, but I think YouTube, there's just not even a question. It's the best one for content. Palantir 2736, Tesla 232, short QQQ up a little bit, but it's still down for the day. Qualcomm's at 180, TFC's down a little bit. Robinhood 2127. I know it sucks seeing Robinhood in this range. I think Robinhood breaks out after earnings. I think this is a dip buy. I think it's struggling because of Bitcoin, the broader market, and when that rebounds after the earnings, I think, you know, closer to the end of the year, we're at 25 to 30. But I like Robinhood right here, and we'll see if it goes higher as Bitcoin goes higher as well. HIM's at 2204, Google at 169, Meta at 470. Verizon's down a little bit, Altria's down a little bit, and then that stock that fell 40% for glucose monitoring, Dexcom, that's up 5% on the day. 67. for that one. And then Amazon 183. Here comes the Monday blues. Yeah, now we got to see if we have a little reversal throughout the rest of the day, or it stays put. YouTube doesn't own the copyright on your content. You should remove your stuff and upload another platform. Yeah, well, see, I disagree with this, dude. Like, here's the thing people don't understand about content. If you make a video and that video gets seen by no one, your video is not really special, right? Like, if you write a book and no one reads your book, congrats, you own all the intellectual property of your book, but no one cares about your book. So as a creator, I care less about owning my content. I care more about the distribution of my content. And I think that's very important, because think about my content, dude. My content is not a music album that's going to be played 50 years from now, right? At that point, you probably do. Like, if you're the Beatles, you want to own the IP because you've created a timeless piece of art. Same thing with a movie, right? A movie can be watched forever. But a live stream on the stock market on July 29th, I think, is not going to be watched 10 years from now. So the value to owning that content is minimal, but the distribution of that content going out to the masses via YouTube's algorithm is massive. So I like from that perspective, the nature of my content, I don't care that much about owning it. I care more about getting distribution. But I know for other people, like, the intellectual property of it matters a lot more than just owning it. So I think you have to ask yourself a question, if you're a creator and you think about it from that perspective. I mean, when did you get monetized? I got monetized in 2021. I got monetized actually like 15 days after starting YouTube. And monetization is hard. You have to get like 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours. Now it's 500 subscribers, so they lowered it. But at the time it was higher. But I got monetized pretty quickly because I was posting like 3 videos a day, and like, you get into the grind of it. Once you get into the grind of YouTube, if you're actually going to be like a YouTuber, then, it's just, you're in it, Same thing with Twitter. Like, once you're in the grind, you're in the grind. But the biggest thing I want to say is the distribution is what matters. Like, if you tweet something and it goes to nobody, the tweet has really no value, right? It could be the greatest tweet in the world. So this is why all these commentators, Dan Ives, Tom Lee, they come on CNBC. Why? It's not because they love CNBC. It's because CNBC has all the distribution. And so for them to get their small cap thesis or Apple thesis out into the world, they need to go to places that have distribution. And CNBC is the biggest one for business. And so that's why they keep coming back. Same thing with Bloomberg, right? That's why they keep coming back there as well. Tate likes Rumble. I was talking about Rumble on Sunday. I looked at Rumble stock. Dude, the metrics on Rumble are disgusting. The market cap on Rumble is 1.8 billion. It was 2.6 billion on Friday. They are doing 50 million in revenue. Like, call it 75 million. 75 million in revenue on a 2 billion market cap, 30 times price to sale, not profitable, declining MAU. They lost 17 million monthly active users last quarter. I was thinking of buying Rumble because it was at $6. I was like, oh, maybe it like bounces to 12. But like, the valuation is so disgusting. I don't know why anyone would buy Rumble. I mean, maybe it pumps on some meme-ish stuff, but Andrew Tate is not enough of a reason to buy Rumble, dude. Neither is like the Republican, convention being on Rumble. Like, it looks like a broken business to me. I don't know how they compete against YouTube. They still have a decent amount of users, but I just don't know how they make this profitable or how they grow the revenue substantially enough to get people excited. I also think the VCs made a lot of money off Rumble. Like, Peter Thiel invested $500 million on Rumble. I think he sold his share. So VCs made money, but public markets, I don't think Rumble has done that well. Ashwin says, it depends largely on the scale of the creator's consumer base. Thinking someone like Mr. Beast or even T-Series could take their content elsewhere. No, I disagree, dude. I don't think if Mr. Beast went to Rumble, he would matter that much anymore. And he said this himself. If you listen to Mr. Beast speak in interviews, like, people ask him, hey, why don't you just start your own platform? And he's like, because I have 300 million subscribers on YouTube. Like, why would I start my own thing? Starting your own thing is tough. Starting your own thing is very, very tough. And the scale of YouTube at 2.4 billion people, like, you're just not going to get that anywhere else. Are you guys really going to not use YouTube every day, right? Just because your creator, one of your creators leaves? Like, no, you're going to come back to YouTube. If you really like them, you might check them out somewhere else. But most people stay where they're used to staying. Mona says, guess what, folks? You sell a painting at a gallery gets 50%. So you can spend 3 years painting something. They're taking 50% because they connect your work to a buyer. Yeah, that's just the nature of business. Like, when you build something, you're going to have to give up a certain percentage of it if you want to get distribution on it. Otherwise, otherwise you have to build your own distribution, which is very difficult to do. Did you watch Meet Kevin's on Graham's podcast? Yes, I watched some of it. The craziest thing he said, which I just can't even understand, is he said he wants to have 20 kids. He has 7 kids right now. He says he's like dead serious. He's like, I want to have 20 kids. I was like, damn, bro. Like, I just want 3. I just want 2 girls and a boy. IWM now down 1%. He wants 20 kids, bro. I mean, does anyone in the chat want 20 kids? Like, that's a lot of kids, bro. Like, 7 kids is already kind of pushing it. 20 kids is a lot. But he was dead serious about that. So that was the biggest thing I got from that podcast. Okay, so IWM's dropping right now. Where's the S&P? S&P is like 12 cents away from dropping. And then QQQ is actually up. So tech's doing well. So that means Nvidia's up right now. Nvidia's up 1.7%. So tech's getting the momentum. Small caps are falling. And the S&P is flat. I guess we'll see throughout the day where that goes. But Tesla is the big winner. Palantir giving up all of its gains. It was up 2%. Now it's up 0.4%. Even though I got the upgrade today. Tesla holding on 6%. Look at Tesla. About to go to 233. So Tesla's outperforming for the rest of the day, which is not bad. You know the funny thing about his wife too? His wife was like, there's no way in hell I'm having 20 kids unless we have a bigger house. And then Meet Kevin, he said on the podcast, he bought the house next to them. He like overpaid by 30% to buy the house next to them so that his wife would like not say that the lack of space is a reason we're not having kids. First of all, I don't like, are you going to merge the 2 houses together, or are you going to like walk into one house into the other house and have 5 kids in one house, 10 kids in the other house? I don't even understand that. Second of all, this is how you know how serious he is that he wants 20 kids, because he literally bought another house to house the kids because his wife said that she's not going to have more kids in the same house. So like, and I don't think Meet Kevin's religious either. It's not like it's a religious thing. I just like, is it this Elon Musk arc that he's on where he just wants a lot of kids? Like, I don't know, but he wants a lot of kids. And I feel like 3 kids is enough for me if I even get to 3 kids. So I mean, that's a lot of kids, bro. 20 kids, bro. 20 kids is a fucking lot. Graham made a good point. They literally won't have time for each kid. Yeah. And then Meet Kevin did some like mathematical analysis. He like calculated the amount of time he spends working divided by the amount of time he's sleeping. And he's like, oh, I still have 3 hours for each kid. I was like, dude, I don't think that's how it works in a week. Like, that's not like, wouldn't you rather have like 3 kids and give them like all your attention versus have 20 kids and give them 3 hours a week each? Like, I don't know. I like, obviously we need more kids because the population is declining, but I don't know if that's the most effective way to raise kids. But then again, you never know. You never know. Ron says, but you're gay, Amit. How can you have a kid? That's true. That's going to be a little difficulty to resolve. No, but I actually want 3 kids. I want 2 girls and a boy. I really think that would be, I don't want 3 boys. That's too much. 3 girls is okay. But like 3 boys is just like, no, dude, I want feminine energy with my son, because I think that's going to make the boy more compassionate, more caring, more empathetic, more humble. So I think 2 older sisters and a younger son, I think that would be like the perfect way to have kids. Now, granted that usually, you know, I can't predict if that's going to happen, but that would be my ideal world on how I want it to happen. Adopting also. Yeah, that's the other thing. Meet Kevin, he could adopt if he really wants 20 kids. He could also adopt. But they didn't sound like they were talking about adopting yesterday on the podcast. Can someone explain why everyone is freaking out over population going down? So I think the big problem is, like, as population grows down from an economic perspective, there's less people available to do work. Remember, the people that are in the factories today, unless they get replaced by robots, they're going to eventually die. People need to replace them. The people that are the head execs of Fortune 500 companies, they're going to die. People need to replace them. Everyone dies and everyone needs to be replaced. So from a labor perspective, as people pass away, you need people to take those jobs. Now, if we don't have literally the amount of people necessary to take those jobs cease to exist, productivity ceases to exist, and overall GDP growth ceases to go higher, unless AI automates that, which, you know, maybe that does happen over the next 10 years, but we need people to do this stuff at the end of the day. This is kind of Elon's big point about population growth as well. So without people, the entire thing kind of falls apart. And we're seeing this in Japan right now. I mean, they're having a big crisis. Japan is literally, Japan, I told you guys the story. They started, the state government started a dating app for Japanese people. Let me see if I can find the story. And like, they're like encouraging people to like date on that app. And I think there's like a bonus if you have a kid or something. Yeah, the city has invested $1.28 million in a dating app for its residents due to be launched this summer. The app is run by a private contractor. Basically, Tokyo's government is making their own version of Tinder, but they're hoping that it's less of a hookup app and more of an app that solves unprecedented birth rate declines. I'll put the article in the chat for those that want to read it. So there you go. I mean, it's getting to the point where governments literally are trying to force people to have kids, or at least incentivize them enough. If Elon's bullish on Optimus, would a small population decline not be good for spreading wealth and prosperity? No, I don't think population increase would hinder Optimus's success. If Optimus grows, that just means less people have jobs in factories, but they can do other things, right? The thesis is they can become more creative, do other better jobs than working in a factory. So Optimus would just create more wealth for the broader economy, and that wealth eventually would be redistributed in some way, whether it's through Tesla stock, if you own it, whether it's through a tax potentially that governments put on these companies if they, start putting trillions. Like when a company starts making trillions of dollars in revenue, which we haven't seen yet, in our lifetime, that will happen. Right now, I think Walmart and Amazon put up like 570 billion or something. So they're getting up there, but they're not there yet. If Tesla is doing 4 trillion in revenue in 2040 because Optimus and FSD is like taking over, I think, and like they've automated millions of jobs with Uber drivers automated, factory workers automated. I would imagine the government's going to tax them a little bit more and like say, hey, we have to do something. And I think Elon actually wouldn't be upset with that, because I think Elon knows that if we want to progress as a society, we're going to have to do something about the labor problem when it gets automated. But I don't think Optimus would necessarily need a small population for people to survive. But we're going to see. We're going to see what happens. Doesn't having one kid over 18 years cost like $300,000? Yeah. Yeah, it's expensive, dude. And then if you pay for their college, like, it's expensive. It's expensive having kids. It's not an easy thing to do, but it is, from the people that I've talked to that have kids, it's the most worthwhile journey of your life. It's just doing it 20 times, bro. Like, I feel like some things like if I hate going to buffets. I honestly hate going to buffets because there's so much food that I get overwhelmed. And so I look at the buffet and I'm like, I can't, I don't even enjoy Palantir 2737. I don't even enjoy the food because there's too much on my plate. But if you go to a restaurant and you get like one burger and fries, I really enjoy the burger and fries. If I have 20 kids, I mean, I'm not like, I don't know if I can really meaningfully care about all 20 of those kids versus, 2 or 3 kids. There's too much mayo at buffets as well. Yes, that's also true. That is also true. All right. I think that's it for me. And we're done for today. We'll be back at 3:45. Tomorrow is going to be a big day for earnings. Today is not a really big day after the bell, so nothing too exciting today. But we'll see how the market reacts if small caps reverse the trend that they're currently at. They're red right now, and if Bitcoin can get back to 70K. But tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, I'm not sleeping. I mean, we've got a lot to discuss over the next 3 days. So this is going to be a really, really big week for the broader market. Okay, there you go. Let's do word of the day and we'll get you guys out of here. Word of the day is zonked. Zonked. Exhausted or asleep. I feel like I've heard this word before. The kids were zonked after the long day at the amusement park. I felt utterly zonked after staying up all night studying for final exams. I'm telling you guys, at the end of this week, we are all going to feel zonked. If you're keeping up with the markets, if you're covering the markets, if you're like looking at the swings, by Thursday night, we will be zonked after big tech earnings. And then next week's not going to be that much better because we got Robinhood and Palantir. So this week's going to be tough. Next 2 weeks are going to be fun weeks. And then we'll get a little bit of a break. Amit was zonked after he ate mayo. Yes, that's how I decided to never eat mayo again. Amit going over PayPal, or am I listening alone today? PayPal's not today. PayPal's tomorrow morning. So tomorrow morning, PayPal and SoFi. We'll try to do both in the morning. And I think SoFi will be before PayPal's earnings call. So we'll listen to PayPal after SoFi. And I'll get some guests to come on the stream and we'll discuss all of that as well. Yes, I'm streaming SoFi. SoFi is a big one tomorrow as well. So I'm streaming SoFi. And let's see how they can do. All right. That's it for me. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Appreciate it. We'll be back 3:45. And I'll see you guys in a little bit. Bye, everyone. Have a good one.